Our son Joshua occasionally likes to send us presents, and sometimes those presents are in good condition, and sometimes, especially with me, I'm a fixer, I love to fix things, they need a little work. I have a new watch. I can show it to you. It's like a really famous watch. Joshua got this from a friend of his, and he sent it to his mom because it has an altimeter in it, and it also has a compass in it, and so it's kind of a cool watch. But when he sent it to us, it didn't have distance with it, and she likes to measure how far she walks. She's doing this unreal, what do they call it? Virtual, that's the word, virtual. She's doing this virtual Appalachian Trail right now, and so she's measuring her distances. And so Joshua sent this watch to her, and she said, well, I really can't use it because it doesn't have distance measuring on it. So if you want it, you can have it. And so I picked it up. I tried to put it on. The first thing, the watch band broke. And so I'm like, oh, great. So I got to order a new watch band. So I ordered a watch band on Amazon Prime. What is that? They say 2-3 days. Well, you see the little clause that's going on underneath there right now where they say it may take a few more days because of the coronavirus. It was like 4 weeks waiting for this watch band to come in, but I finally got it on, and I finally got it. But when I opened the box to receive it, I got some instructions on how to set this watch and the things that I can do to make this watch work correctly. And it's in really fine print. And I noticed that I got instructions for several different languages, for several different countries, because this is a world watch. And so I was looking at all of these instructions, and finally I broke down and looked all through the fine print and found where it's not. Oh, there's French, and there's Turkish, and there's Polish, and I finally found a section that says English, and so I was able to set the watch and get it right. But as I was looking at all of these instructions that came with this simple little watch, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if, for moms, if kids came with instructions? I just love that. Like our friend said when her daughter called her, she said, Mom, you remember that time? And our friend stopped her and said, hey, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I did the very best I could with what I had to work with. You did not come with an instruction manual telling me how to raise you. And I thought, what a cool thing to say to our kids. For moms, you know, dads, they're a different story, right? In most cases, moms do the best they can. They really do. You did not come into this world with an instruction manual specific to who you are, your personality traits, your little quirks and your little differences. It takes great discernment and great wisdom to do the best a mom can with what they have to work with. Every mom would love to hear that announcement and her name called as the applause are through the large crowd as they receive the Super Mom of the Year award. But I'm also aware in my years of experience dealing with ladies that every mom in her heart feels that some place that she's fallen short in this thing called motherhood. In most cases, moms do the very best they can. And today is the celebration of what a mom got right, okay? What your mom got right. And how much we really appreciate them. And so I want to take a moment and just walk through some things that might help you, whether you had a good mom, a bad mom. Mother's Day, it's the third largest attended Sunday of any calendar year, the first being Easter and the second being Christmas. Mother's Day is always a real tense time. We have ladies come to church with all different kinds of reasons for really not liking Mother's Day. And I'm like, what? What's wrong with Mother's Day? And then I realized not everybody had the same kind of a mom, and people come from all different dynamics of life. And Mother's Day is a really, really difficult time for some men and for others for ladies. And so we just want to look at what mothers should be and what mothers can be and what mothers have been to us and focus on some of those things. So if we could just shift our mind a little bit to think positively about this third largest attended Sunday of any calendar year. Mother's Day started with Anna Jarvis. I just love that lady. Has anybody ever been to Grafton, West Virginia? Anybody ever been to Grafton, West Virginia? Grafton, West Virginia is where, in a small country church, Anna Jarvis got together with the people in the church and said, I want to celebrate, and May 10th was her mother's birthday, I want to celebrate and applaud my mother on a regular calendar event, established as a church celebration first and foremost. And so they got together in that day, what year was it? 1908. And celebrated a Mother's Day where they just said, thank you, moms, for being who you are. And for then the rest of her life, after that very first Mother's Day, Anna Jarvis celebrating her mother, Ann Reeves Jarvis, for the work that she did in helping the men in the military, both North and South, in the Civil War. Some of you may know a little bit about the medical background of the Civil War, that like they would have all the wounded warriors come off of the battlefield, and they would lay them out on mats in the street of the towns. And many times before there was enough help to get to them, to help them with any little problem that they might have, laying out there in that baking sun, many soldiers, more than on the battlefields, died from infections, and many died from dehydration because they'd say, oh, I need some water. There's 1,000 guys laying here. We can't help them. Anna Jarvis's mom was one of the ladies that helped bandage those people, and she figured out that you don't take the bandage off the dead guy and then put it over on the live guy. Some of the infections that took place during the Civil War. So Ann Reeves Jarvis, her mother, she saw as an amazing lady who helped all of these wounded warriors. And she said, my mom needs recognition. I just want to thank her for all that she's done, the amazing lady that she was and is. And I want to say thank you to my mom and thank her for raising me. And so Anna Jarvis set that up. But what's interesting is from the day she started it, she fought to stop it. She fought to stop Mother's Day because she said, I want Mother's Day to be a day of sentiment, not profit. Oops, well, if you work for Hallmark, there we go. She died in 1948. Until the day she died, she said, this Mother's Day thing with buying flowers and plant salespeople on the street corners and all this other stuff, exploiting this whole thing as, whoa, people want to honor their moms. We can make some money at this. She said, no, no, no. That's not what it's about. It's about simply thanking your mom for what she's done for you. In Genesis chapter 4, we read about that very first mother, Eve, the beginning of mothers. Her first child was born. His name was Cain. Then came her second son, the baby that she spoiled and loved more than anything else. And so they got this huge sibling rivalry going on, Abel. And then came her third son, Seth. She didn't have a lot to work with. Think about poor lost Eve. She had no mom to guide her. She didn't have a mom to instruct her on how to raise these kids. And she had to do it without a belly button. Eve. She didn't have a lot to go on. She had no one to give her instructions on how to be a good mom. She had to deal with the heavy load of sibling rivalry, and she felt that shame that some mothers feel when their son has done a terrible crime, personalizing it. In Genesis chapter 5, verse 3, it gives reference to several other sons and daughters born to Adam and Eve. Adam, he lived 800 years. Eve close to that. That's the first we see of family, because Jewish lineage is patriarchal. Not much more is said about Eve, that very first mother. But in Eve, the mother of all things, is born something that carries on in motherhood up to today. The value of a mother in the life of a child. It is the mother who, in this mystery of life, gets to connect with the child like no one else ever. My father-in-law talked about with me when my father passed away, and he had lost his father many years earlier, and he said, Jim, it really hurts to lose your dad, but let me tell you, when you lose your mom, there's something special in that connection. And I got thinking about that connection that a person has with their mother. A mother is that great mystery of life, gets connected to a child like no one else. There's something to that connection. They carry a child in that early development for 9 months. Guys, can you believe that? For 9 months. Think about it. 3/4 of a year, it's two people becoming one in the connection of a mother and her child. It blows my mind. The movement, the heartbeat, the sound of her voice. When Kay got an ultrasound for Joshua, our youngest son, they were trying to move the baby to see if it's a boy or a girl, and when they're moving it on the ultrasound, the nurse pushed on Kay's belly and Joshua sucked his thumb. Don't tell me it's not a baby. In Psalm 139, verses 13 through 16, we read where the psalmist talks to God about his being created by the Father. And he says, "For you created my inmost being, Lord. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes, God, saw my unformed body." So what is the value of a mother? A mother keeps you. A mother keeps you. She gives you life. Think about that for a moment. She carries you in her body. Think about that, but not too hard, please, because as I think about a mother carrying this baby in her body, and I try to get it in touch with what? My feminine side? It's not there, sorry. But I think, what, like a tick? Sucking your blood? Ooh, or like a tapeworm? Oh, wait, please. If you're here today, it is your mother who kept you. It was her decision to keep you. Yes, I understand it takes two in the creation event, but beyond society's guilt placed on the woman and the shame that she has of carrying unplanned pregnancies, it is the mother who has the bigger part in the preservation of your life. Look at all the prenatal care they do today with vitamins, no smoking or alcohol use, watching what they eat, getting proper exercise. My older brother Kelly, he's 18 months older than me. My older brother Kelly and I have that rivalry that you hear about with the Smothers Brothers. Yeah, Mom always loved me best. Well, I talk a lot about how early I remember my earliest memories. I was in the hospital when I was 18 months old, and I remember that. How can you remember 18 months old? It's easy because I remember distinctly I was given peaches for the first time in my life. And when I was a sick little baby, and I also remember the trauma of my mom leaving me because moms don't stay with babies back then like they do now. And I was in the hospital and my mom left me, and I thought she left me forever, and so I had to rip my stuffed rabbit apart and puff that all over the place. I was so upset. And I remember tearing my rabbit apart because I thought I'd never see my mom again. And I remember eating peaches. And so I remember that. And my brother's like, "Oh yeah, you think you remember so well?" I says, "Oh yeah? Well, I remember before I was born and seeing the writing on the wall that said, 'Ha, Mom loved me first.'" If you're here today, it's because your mother carried you. She kept you. And she birthed you. She carried you full term and gave you sustenance from her own body until you breathed your first breath of separate life. And that alone is reason enough to say thank you. You may not have been the greatest mom ever, but you know what? Thanks, Mom. Thanks for keeping me. We've heard all kinds of stories. One of our friends' moms went in for a hysterectomy back when they used to do those exteriorly. And they went in and they opened her up to do the hysterectomy, and when they opened her up, there was a baby in there. So they sewed her back shut. And our friend talks to us today about the miracle of her life. She said, I'm here today because my mom kept me. Life begins for all of us in the womb of our mother. She gives in many ways sacrificially for us to exist. My dad had a tattoo on his arm. It said, in memory of mother. She paid the ultimate sacrifice for his life. He was unplanned, unexpected in his parents' eyes. My father was. And when she discovered she was pregnant, she also discovered she had cancer. And the recommendation was, well, we have to remove this baby to help you and take care of you. And my grandmother said no. My father was miraculously born through all the cancer that my grandmother was filled with. And after he was born, just a couple days following his birth, she died. My father never knew his mother, but he appreciated that his mother chose him and kept him. I'm here today because of that, because of Grandma Eunice. A mother, more than anyone else, makes the decision to carry us until birth. That's a good reason to celebrate Mother's Day. Thank you, moms, for keeping us. What is the value of mother? She gives you life, but she also trains you. She influences you. She imprinted you with her values and judgments. You know, we just saw Eagle special, and they were recovering this baby eagle that fell out of a nest, and they were going to feed it. And they were so concerned about that imprinting with a person's face that they would become, the eaglet would become dependent upon people. And so they fed the eaglet with a stuffed eagle that had an eagle's face. Your mother imprints on you who she is. You ever think of that? Many times more than you realize. In the Old Testament, God gives instructions to his people to be very careful about marrying people outside the faith. In fact, there's a lot of scriptural references where God talks about the importance of marrying people of like mind and faith spiritually. Because God knows that it is the mother who has more influence on a child than anyone else. King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, in 1 Kings 11:2, we read the story and it says, in the past, the Lord had said to the Israelites, you must not marry people from other nations. If you do, they will cause you to follow their gods, to get off track. Through whose influence? The mother's. That influence, more than anywhere else, comes from the mother. In those formative years, a child spends the majority of their time with one person, mom. The very first face they ever see. I wonder if it's upside down. Their very first understanding of love and safety comes from mom. That very first smile. What's the focal distance of a newborn baby? The distance between their face and their mother's. The humming of songs she sings them to sleep by. They tell us a baby recognizes their mom's voice after they're born from before they're born. The warmth of their embrace. Babies love to be swaddled because they have been swaddled for 9 months. Even the first words learned most often come from mom. All firsts come from mother. A mother trains you. A mother teaches you. And that's something to be thankful for. It was Billy Sunday, the great revival preacher, tent revivalist, who said often, give me a godly mother and I'll change the world. But as far as fathers, any old stick will do. I think that says something about his relationship with his father. He didn't have a good father. A mother trains up a child in the way they will go so that when they are old, they will not depart from it. Moms train us from potty training, how to respond and respect others. How often we see a young mom with her child giving instructions. What do you say to the man? Say thank you. instructing that child. It was Mom who taught me what words were acceptable and what words were not acceptable. And I'll talk to you after church about what soap is the best tasting. We're certainly not leaving fathers out of the equation here, but our emphasis for today is mothers. Mothers have an incredible influence on how a child is trained. In most cases, a child learns right from wrong, good or bad, from their mother. And for their life values Ahmad gives, we are thankful. What value of a mother? She gives you life, she keeps you, she trains you, and she loves you. She loves you like no other. Listen, no one else loves like a mother. A mother always loves their child, always. Always. Isn't it interesting that people say they're Jesus followers? Those who say they're Jesus followers are instructed in the teachings of Jesus to love unconditionally. We're supposed to what? Love our neighbors. We're supposed to love our spouse. We're supposed to love our family. We're supposed to love our enemies. We're supposed to love ourselves in spite of some of the things that we may have done. We're supposed to love strangers. But the example of unconditional love is best seen in a mother. Love is modeled by moms. When Dad is saying, under my roof, it's my way or the highway, it's the mom that comes in with unconditional love. Now, I have a confession here. I've been to prison. In fact, I've been to 2 prisons. I've been to a whole lot of jails, but I've been to 2 prisons. One of the saddest places I've ever been is not the prison visitation center. It's the processing room before the visitation center. You know why it's sad? Because it's full of moms. I've never seen any men there, except myself. I sit with all the moms, wringing their hands, watching and hoping, all sitting around waiting to see their sons. And I'm sure daughters. I've not been to a woman's prison. I've never seen another man in the processing business. If the guard says yes, I'll call him up, they get to see their sons. If the guards ignores them, they sit there the entire day and never get to see their son until it closes. And then they leave and they say, well, maybe next time. Usually it's every other day visitation. And they say, maybe next time. We have very close friends of ours whose son went to prison for a stupid mistake he made. His mom went every single visitation day for his 3 years he was in. I've seen moms with tears find out who I am. Oh great, here I get bombarded as they ask me to pray for their sons. Sometimes those sons have done unspeakably bad things. And yet, the moms still love them. I once knew a mom who had a wayward son wrapped up in a horrible life of drugs and homosexuality. Things I don't often talk about from the pulpit. She felt so strongly about her son that she found out where he was living in Phoenix. This was in Michigan. She found out where he was living in Phoenix. And she said, I'm going to get him. She bought a ticket and she said, I'm going to fly down there on my own. Her husband didn't go with her. She said, I'm going to fly down, I'm going to find my son, and I'm going to rescue him from himself. I talked to her just a few days before she flew out. She said, I bought the ticket, and I'm going to go find my son. Because I love him. She looked at me and she said, Pastor, no one loves my son in the condition he's in right now, but I do. And if I don't love him, no one will. I'm going down there to save my son from himself. And she did. And I just checked here about a year ago and I found out her son's doing good. She saved her son. Now that's a mom. A mother always loves. So here's what I want you to do. Today is a day of tribute and honor. I know there's people that have problems and mother issues, but today is a day of tribute and honor. So sometime today, if you can, make the effort to connect with your mom. If you can, give her a hug, a physical touch, physical hug. I know we're social distancing, but not to moms. Give her a hug and thank her. Thank her for giving you life. Thank her for her positive influence on your life. And thank her for loving you unconditionally. Can you tell her you love her? If she's gone, then simply pass love on to the next generation. Let them see the value of a mom through you. Father, we thank you for mothers. And we thank you for Mother's Day, a day that's very hard for many people. Our heart goes out to them as we hear their stories and know their stories. But we pray, Lord, that you would move in a special way to help us see, at least a little bit, the value of a mother. And for those who have been blessed, beyond blessed, with an incredible mom, we say thank you. Because they are the people that make us through the influence of a positive mom. So bless your people, we pray. And especially bless the mothers this day. In Jesus' name.